And so this is an Indigenous or Native American moderated session. We just wanted to start with a prayer song to get us started. And so for most tribes and Indigenous peoples across South and Central and North America, giving acknowledgement to the universe and space around us is kind of the best way to start and to start things off in a good way. And so most tribes have tobacco offerings, different kinds of offerings, it might be a prayer or a song. And so with that, we have Mr. Israel Tamayo who's going to share a song with us. So I'll go turn it over to him.
Everybody rise, please.
We also want to kind of start with just a little acknowledgement of the land that we are walking upon. So I'm just going to read this statement and then we have a little, I won't say disclaimer, but we'll talk about it a little bit after. So here's a land acknowledgement to kind of start off our event. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional homelands of the Indigenous people who have lived and continue to live on the land we gather upon. These lands were originally inhabited by the Umahas, the Poncas, the Pawnees, Oto Missouria, the Isanti, the Dakota, Ansa, Iowa, the Cheyenne, the Ho-Chunk people. There's also other tribes that that kind of just passed through the area. But a most important part of this land acknowledgement, I feel, is that not only do we take this time to acknowledge the past, present, and future of Indigenous people, but to also recognize the ever-present systemic inequities stemming directly from past wrongdoings, and to strive to commit ourselves indefinitely to respecting and reconciling this long history for injustice for all people. And so I think that second part of this land acknowledgement is really important, because a lot of times when we talk about land acknowledgements, that's about as far as we go, as far as helping Indigenous peoples. But what can we do to commit ourselves to ensuring not just for Native peoples, but for all peoples? How do we correct some of those historic inequities to produce healthier communities and environments for people today? And so I don't know if Nicole wants to say anything in addition.
I think one big thing is a reminder that not one of us speaks to all Indigenous Native people, and so you will see the same kind of, I guess, not conflicting, but just different ideas of what should be done or how things should be done. When it comes to land acknowledgements, my big piece is that people are very good at saying things, but there being no actual action behind them and actual change to better make space for those communities who have kind of been pushed out or just put to the side. So for me, we had this discussion about land acknowledgements and how we as Indigenous people would like that to look when we're doing, especially when this is focused on our population for the table talk today. For me, we don't even have land. Like, we have to literally pretty much beg and knock on people's doors all the time, looking to find space to hold programs, space to hold our traditional ceremonies and practices. And so while it's nice that majority of organizations are now saying, oh, yes, we have to do a land acknowledgement, but if we still don't even have space or land as a community, what is the point of doing land acknowledgement? There's hundreds of tribes, like Echo said, that have come through the area and some have stayed longer than others. And there's 4 headquartered tribes that are here in Nebraska currently, but we're still in a space that we are a lot of the time kind of just forgotten about and not really having that piece as a people who really need. So that needs to be a lot of land acknowledgement.
Sorry if would you all mind using these just for our Zoom folks? I think we're good in here, but just want to make sure they can hear. Thank you so much.
And I think within that, then we'll go to introducing ourselves. And so, Yat Edo Yat, Shaya Echohawk Lefthand, Arosh Kazon, Little Kapang, Bashichin, Ashenda Chedo, Kintlachin, Dasnala, Tao A the Nanchle. So my name is Echohawk Lefthand. Currently, I serve the state of Nebraska as an administrator for the Office of Health Disparity and Health Equity. And I'll be the moderator today. Thank you.
Is it smile matcha pinaha la cocha zewoke or shehukshila matcha below? I greet you guys today. In my Lakota tongue, or because English is not our first language. But anyways, I work for Bluebird Cultural Initiative. My tribe is Lakota, and I'm 20 years old. And my family is the Tamayo family. And yeah, thanks.
My name is Kylesse. I'm from the Omaha tribe of Nebraska. I attend South Omaha High School. I'm a sophomore. I'm 15 and I come from the Walker family.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Benegas. I am Israel's mother, proud mother. But I am the executive director of Bluebird Cultural Initiative. We are members of the Sichangu Lakota and come from the Ihangtawa people as well from Yankton, South Dakota. Sichangu meaning burnt dye people from the Rosebud Reservation is where we were placed at. And we come from, my grandmother was a maiden as a Buckman from Mills Camp community area. And my grandfather comes from Bordertown, Texas, which kind of gives me another perspective of being Hispanic. I consider myself Chicana and Indigenous. And so that's kind of where I come from today as I'm speaking with you guys. Just want to thank our lovely panelists here, Israel and Kylesse. I would like to share that I think it's really important to have our young people sharing their perspective, and we're gonna let them explain that later on of why they think it's important to be up here today too. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for joining us today on this conversation around the importance of cultural revitalization. And the first question I'm going to put out to our panelists here is just what does culture mean to you? And why is it important as a Native American young person for you to be involved in your respective cultures?
I guess I don't really always know exactly how to answer this question because I was born Native, so I don't know what it's like to be without my culture.
I think the importance of our culture is and your self-identity is it helps you stay strong-minded through hard times. I know when growing up back and forth from the reservation and the city, on a reservation, I can easily go and ask someone to help me for guidance, ceremonial-wise, or traditional ceremonies, or our traditional knowledge that they can. And but here we can't. We don't have really anywhere to practice our traditional ceremonies, and so it could tend to be hard and to continue living our way of life in a city. But I try my best to from here being here. I try my best to live it. But yeah.
Nicole, do you have anything to add?
I think on the point that Kylesse was talking about is that here's a little story we were talking about this morning, was that sitting there thinking about it, like when we go anywhere, to the store, to the gas station, we automatically can point out and see if we see another Native person. And for us, it's like, oh, you have an immediate connection with that person. It's an open invitation to have a conversation, to ask them, oh, who's your family? Where are you from? What are you doing? Or what? Or even if it's just a head nod or something, like you acknowledge each other. And so looking at it from another perspective is that we're probably the only really like group of people, I guess. Cause I'm like, well, if we were non-Native, like you don't see people, oh, there's another person that's white. There's another person that's Black. Like there's so many more, just the population is so much larger. And so for us, like we do feel different than other people. Like we do feel like, oh, well, other people don't understand. Like that's something that we carry, and we have a different experience on a daily basis.
I agree with that. In starting my role here with the state, at the state offices down in Lincoln, I was walking by the library, and there was these young ladies that were walking by, and I was like, "Hey, are you guys Native?" And they stopped and they kind of looked back, and they were like, "Yeah," and they were from Pine Ridge, they were Oglala, but they were happy to see just another Native person in the building. And so from that day on, now every time we see each other, we do the head nod. Hey, what's up? How you doing? So it is good to kind of make those connections and to be included in your environment. Second question we have here is, what is the one experience as a Native American student that you have had in the education system that you would like to share? So when you were in school, what are maybe some things that you saw that maybe you liked and didn't like as a Native Indigenous student?
So going from the reservation, going to school there, you're surrounded with other kids that are exactly, your same tribe or are Native, and they have that understanding of like your long hair, why you have long hair, and but then my brother and I will come back to Omaha or where we were living at the time, and we used to get in trouble because we would get our hair pulled, and we would do something about it. We won't let it slide. But I'm even my younger siblings today. They experience. I remember when they're younger, they were in a Native pre-K, and even the Native kids here don't have an understanding of why we have long hair. And I remember one day my brother came back home and he had his hair chopped off too, from a kid. So I'm being part Mexican too. I couldn't really fit in with the Mexicans because I don't speak Spanish or really look too much Mexican. So didn't really hang out with them in high school or anything. And so it would just be me and my brother. And we always felt, on the outside. And we always get made fun of because we would, wear like, our hair in braids, 2 braids, or in a bun before it was popular. Yeah, before man buns was a thing. Or we'll wear like we call them unchi scarves, which is like grandmother scarves. We will wear those as instead of bandanas, and we would just get made fun of for just being proud who you are. And I know there's just one couple times where I would go to school with like our medallions and all that, our beadwork, and then kids will yank them. Yeah, but I experienced a lot of bullying because of it. I mean, and causes a lot of reasoning on why I lost interest in attending school and started to act up. But yeah. Okay.
Um, yes, going to school in Omaha since I was young. I never really got to experience going to school on the res, but it is definitely very different having to sit in a history class, being the only Native American student, being a proud Native American student, letting everyone know, telling your teachers. And then when it comes time to talk about Native American history, everyone turns and looks at you, or the teacher points you out, or asking you questions about it. I guess at the time it made me feel like important and being able to help. But now that I look at it, it's kind of like I wasn't a teacher. I was there to learn about it, and it kind of wasn't, I don't know how to, yeah, not my place to teach about it. Um, my freshman year, my 8th grade year was the first time I wore a ribbon skirt to school. And I wore beaded earrings every day, basically. And I would get looks and people would look and, laugh, whatever. But I had a teacher, she remembered me. I seen her again this year at a doing, and she remembered me because she was like, "Oh, you're the girl that wore the ribbon skirt 8th grade year." And I was like, "Dang, you remembered that." And it just made me feel really good because a lot of people don't see that as normal or, yeah, normal.
Okay. So listen to her. Kind of made me think of something else. So in high school, our any grade they take a week for a Holocaust. You know what I mean? Like they get really detailed about the Holocaust and the trauma that the Jews were put through. But we have an entire month talking about our native heritage, but they're not really teaching us the kids really what we were put through. Like I know half my history teachers will get upset because I will bring up boarding schools, and then they're like, "Never heard of that." I was like, "Okay, well I'll show you," and I'll prove them, show them evidence about boarding schools, and tell them the stories that my grandmother was put through, and but they still won't deny it, and then they'll get frustrated because they'll give me, I'll have quizzes throughout the month about our own people, and it'll be like, bubble questions. And I would cross all of them out, but like, all these are wrong. And I'll fill the test, of course. And then he like, well, Izzy, if you think that's my nickname, by the way, Izzy. They'll be like, well, Izzy, since you think you know it, I'll come teach your class, and I will. I wasn't scared to be proud and teach what I was taught from my grandpa and my mother. And but I still will fill the class. And actually, I was just telling my mom this, that last year we did a show, I believe it was last year, at the Durham Museum. They do an annual Christmas thing, and we performed there, singing and dancing. And my grandpa couldn't make it, and so I spoke on our behalf. And my history teacher from high school was there, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were for real. That you are really Native." And I was like, "Well, thanks to you, I failed history. Cool." But yeah, so just the fact that they're teaching them they're sugarcoating what they put us through, and they're learning more of like, oh, you know, we're cutting out turkeys and decorating turkeys as to celebrate Native Americans or to celebrate Thanksgiving, but then not explain what truly happened. And now it's just a holiday that you're basically celebrating the dead and rape, you know what I mean? And so that's what I think it was really hard because I'll be in school, of course, like what Kylie said, when it comes to anything Native American, everybody just looks at me in the back. And I always be in the back of the room. And everybody be like, oh, is he gonna say something today? You know? And I'll be like, if you guys want me to, but you know, and they don't want to listen though. You know what I mean? They don't nobody wants to hear that what they're teaching is incorrect. But yeah, that's just what I had to add.
Want to speak on the one positive, like the one teacher you have? Remember he was like.
Okay, forgot about this. So I did have one teacher or two teachers out of the entire school that was like Team Izzy, you know? And so I had an advisory teacher, homeroom, whatever you guys may have called it when your guys' time. Excuse me. But he really pushed on allowing me to, because I travel a lot for dancing and to practice singing. I compete around United States and Canada for dancing and singing for our traditional ways. And I would get in trouble because I would miss school, of course. And he'd be like, you know, he really loved the fact that I'm out here doing this instead of out there trying to game bang or do drugs or anything like that. And so he would talk all my teachers into allowing me to take my schoolwork and do like, you know, after school stuff to catch up. And but I had this tutor too that would come in. She was a retired teacher named Nancy. She was my favorite because she gave me canes every day. But yeah, so she would come in and she really got to learn. I actually by the end of the 4 year or 3 years I was there, I taught her throughout those 3 years how to introduce herself in Lakota. And she's a little white old grandma and it was cool. And she'd be like, oh, I prayed for you at church this week and all that. And she understood I don't believe, you know, in that way. But I did explain to her that any type of form of prayer is very important. And so it was them two. If it wasn't for them two, I really wouldn't have been able to go to school every day that I was there. But yeah.
I just wanted them to share a little bit about that because it does make a difference to have a support person, to have somebody to say what you're doing and your culture and who you are is seen and acknowledged, and that it can get you a lot farther in these systems that maybe weren't built for our kids in the first place. So there's been a lot of change. There's a lot of curriculum development and stuff that are going on in the school systems now. There's a lot more conversations around how do we change the atmospheres and make it so that our young people are feeling accepted, acknowledged, seen, and that some of that true history is getting put into it. I just think that, you know, you have to understand, because I know a big part of kind of the graduation rates and things like that is that if those education systems are not places that our kids feel like they are even supposed to be a part of, they're not going to make it through there. They have to have programs like the Native program for OPS, the NICE program. They have to have community support programs to be able to help them and to advocate and speak for them, you know, speak with them and make sure that they're getting what they're supposed to be getting out of these education systems as well.
Awesome. And thinking about inclusion and visibility reminds me of a conversation that my sister lives in Idaho, that her daughter came up to her with and talking about the opposite side of being supported in school. And so I guess my sister was telling me that my niece was having a party at school, and my sister had to bring something, to like a dish or something. And I guess my sister went into the school, and my niece was just, her whole face turned bright red, and she was just really, grabbed my sister by the arm and took her outside in the hallway and said, "Mom, Mom, why did you have to come to school today wearing those?" And she was wearing these big beaded earrings. And my sister was just mortified and like, what do you mean? And I guess after school they had a conversation about, what was happening. And she goes, I don't want, and my sister was telling me that my niece was saying, I don't want to be different. I want to be like everybody else. And so why did you have to wear those? And I guess they got into a conversation about like being Native and what are some of those stereotypes. And I think a lot of that, is some of that in our schools that don't have a lot of representation of being Native or the culture of being Native. Just some of those things about how it can make us as Native people almost ashamed or to be embarrassed to be a part of, our culture as well. And so just what, was being shared reminded me of, this was like 2 weeks ago, I had this conversation with my sister. So very interesting. But in thinking about our culture, each culture has its own customs, values, beliefs, and practices, social norms, rules, beliefs, values, and things like that. How has being involved in your culture helped you in life as far as getting through some of these negative experiences or just maybe through some hard times?
For me, I'm a dancer, and I feel like when things get hard and it's powwow time and I get out there and I get to dancing, it makes me feel really good. It makes me just be able to forget all of the emotion that I have, and just being able to heal that way and really being able to connect with the earth.
Okay. Oh. Being involved in my culture has helped me through some. Can I answer the second question? Okay.
Just want to go to your question.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me add something real quick.
Okay. Never mind.
So I think when you look at a lot of the data, there are very negative when you look at the Native community as far as just health in general, mental health, all of those things. One thing when you talk about kind of reconnecting to the earth, a lot of people will say, and I'm a big one about this, is that we have community gatherings or we have like our annual gatherings back at our home. So I grew up in Omaha primarily. My family, like I said, my grandmother's from a little community called Milks Camp that's like up in the hills, no reception, no cell service, nothing like that. But we have our annual kind of community powwow every year, and that's where we go back home to do our namings, do our like getting our spirit names, to getting our eagle plumes and feathers pinned on us, doing memorials and different things like that for our families. And so most tribes in the Great Plains, they all kind of have that same kind of concept of doing their things from where they come from, where their family comes from. And we always say, oh yeah, back home. And I've never lived in Milks Camp. I wasn't born there, nothing, but that's where our people are from. That's where we know like our strength and our ancestors are from, are kind of connected there in the land. And so for us going back home for our gatherings, it's a sense of reconnecting with your kind of community. It's reconnecting, just re-energizing yourself to kind of continue through the struggles and daily living of being outside of your kind of nice, peaceful area up there. So for like a lot of people that I talk to, they'll say the same thing, that it's a time to reconnect, re-energize, to make it through kind of the whole society that we have to live in going forward for the year again. So it's really healing. It's really kind of just centering and like helping you find your balance again to continue doing the work, continue to live in these worlds that maybe don't understand who we are as a people.
And so thinking about the very important connection to our behavioral and mental health, kind of a segue into our next question is, do you think culture is important to be incorporated into those aspects of health? And how do you use it to balance yourself in life?
This is what I was gonna answer earlier, just saying. But growing up, I've always felt left out, even with my siblings, because I did lose my dad to suicide before I was born. So I never had like that. I didn't feel like I belonged with anybody. So I struggle with depression a lot. Still to this day, I have like my little days, but throughout those times, our coach, my culture and ceremonies, songs especially helps me. I know when I feel like just curling up and crying all day, I pull out my drum and I sing, or I hit up my brothers and be like, "Hey, what you guys doing? Let's go sing." And or we, be like, "Oh, what we doing this weekend?" And we're all going through something during the week and having a hard time and feeling like, we're not doing enough. I know for a fact that my brothers and I just say, "Well, let's just go." And then we get in the car and literally drive like 12 hours, 20 hours plus. This depends. And even though we'll have like probably enough just to get there and we don't care. But I mean, that's the fun part. Especially when you don't eat all weekend. But that's a different story. No, it helps though. I dance too. And so when I dance, it really, I think about the things that I'm going through. And while I'm dancing, it helps me release those. And I put like all my heart and emotion into when I'm dancing. And so afterwards, like a day of dancing or a whole weekend or even a whole month of going constantly every weekend or week, I don't feel that depression no more. And it also helped me with the actions that I make to this day. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like just like every other, young adult, teenager, and even kids, they especially our age, our native youth, are exposed to drug and alcohol at a very young age. Like on average, it's like 8, 7 years old. And I was always around it, and I've never picked up a bottle, never drank in my life or done drugs, and a reason why is because of I have cultural identity. I understand how great our people are and can be when when they don't have that. Because literally on our reservation there, it wasn't illegal. It was illegal for a long time until they legalized it, and it shows that that's when our people started losing their minds. Like we didn't freaking have we had our lives together for a while, and once they legalized alcohol again, that's when everything went downhill on the reservations. But so it helped me say no to drugs and alcohol all my life, still to this day. And there's times where I get so frustrated because I see all my friends or relatives having fun, but I literally have my siblings that keep me entertained, so I'm pretty good. But yeah, that's what culture really does help me mentally
So I think we have time for one more comment, and because Kylesse, you came in your princess attire. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how that makes you feel to be Native?
When I first ran for the Fort Omohana Tribal Powwow Princess, it was super overwhelming. You know, I didn't really have confidence in myself seeing the other girls there. And that probably sounds bad, but being able to like push myself to do that and getting the call and being told that I got the title, it brought me to tears. It made me really happy to know that I'd be able to represent not only the powwow, but for my community, my people, my family, Bluebird. And yeah.
So if you don't understand, so a lot of times people talk about power princesses and nobody really like, a lot of times that may be some movie fantasy idea of what a power princess is. But a lot of our gatherings, community gatherings and powwows and things have what we call princesses, or they have like braves or something if they have a young man kind of representing. And it's a way for the kind of community and like, so this is for Metro Community College, it's their powwow princess that she won. But it's for them to be able to showcase kind of that we're still here as a people. They have to do interviews, do a written like essay for the princess contest, and then they do like a dance contest as well. And with that, it's really about like being a good role model. Kylesse has a bunch of younger siblings who all like little girls who follow her around and dance around behind her and everything. And so I think one thing for our young people is that they have other kids looking at them. Izzy and Kylesse both are really ones who have stepped up in the community, have tried to share their voice. Whenever asked, they weren't quite sure, but they're like, okay, whatever, we'll come do it. But it's these types of situations. Me and Kylesse were talking in the car on the way here, and she said, like I get to have an opportunity to speak on behalf of young people who may not be able to be in these places, who maybe are not getting brought to the table. They don't come from perfect families and backgrounds and things. Like even as traditionally as Native people, we had struggles, we had things that we had to overcome, but we had our cultural ways and practices that helped us and guided us through those things in a positive way. And when kind of, the genocides and colonization came in, we weren't able to practice our culture. We weren't able to utilize those coping skills that we as a people had prior to colonization. And so it wasn't until 1978 with the Religious Freedom Act that we were legally able to practice our ways in public without it being something that you could get arrested for. And so people say, why is it that it's so important today that we talk about revitalizing culture and practices and ceremonies? And it's because literally I'm the first generation of my family to be born with the right to do those things, to legally be able to do these things. And when you look at mental health, you look at education, it's the fact that we're only a couple generations into this. We're only trying to bring back things that were supposed to be gone by now. We're supposed to not be able to know these ways. And so as young people, they've stepped up, they're learning these ways. And this isn't, a one-off, panelist discussion. This is something that they do on a daily basis. This is something that they live. So like for Kylesse to say, I don't know anything else, she's very lucky to come from a family that has held on to some of those traditions, who have been involved in the community. But for a lot of our families, and even a lot of, generations before me who weren't able to have these, who were adopted out, who were forcefully removed from families, they have completely lost that connection. And so now they're trying to come back. They're trying to see, who am I? Why is it that I feel lost? What is my purpose and role in this community? Who do I belong to? So when we say, we see somebody, you're Native, me too, you automatically connect. It's because you have to find your role, your people, your community, so that you can continue to strengthen and build on and revitalize these ways. So I'll keep going.
Kylesse. I'm getting recorded now. Okay. And just the deficiencies in the system itself, and not really sharing or giving space to really maximize the knowledge that you both bring in the room, and then being challenged on your own knowledge of your own culture was just really disheartening and troubling for us. And knowing that the system does have to change. Our education system absolutely has to shift. So we had some conversations around that. And knowing that there is that new legislation that passed with the Nebraska State Education that's requiring Native American histories to be taught, but that, that just happened in this last couple of years. And then in terms of what our next steps and what we wanted to do or to learn or to bring back, we're wanting to know like what activities there are to learn more about the histories of the different tribes that are in Nebraska, the Metro Omaha area, and also ways in which if we have individuals that are really great about learning languages, where people can go to learn some of the tribal languages if they're interested, to just help elevate that. Also finding out, is there some sort of resource that has a compilation of all the resources for Native and Indigenous folks? Like, are there spiritual or cultural resources compiled for folks in Omaha, especially with the youth focus, for us to learn more and for educators to be better about incorporating cultural identity work into their curriculum as a way to better support students? And then we had a suggestion of someone that does kind of mental health work. This could be good to even incorporate into groups, therapy groups, including that cultural identity as a pathway to promoting healing with the Native Indigenous folks that seek those services. And then lastly, just doing more to learn how we can help support Native and Indigenous communities within our city to elevate the experiences and the perspectives.
Thank you very much. That sounds like a really good conversation. Who in this room wants to do our share out? We didn't pick anyone. Sure, thank you.
Just give me a mic and I'm ready to go. I'm just taking, we've had so many wonderful discussions here, but just kind of taking it back to just Israel starting it off with the prayer and just making us all feel whole. It was moving, it was uniting, and it also set the pace, talking about themes of not just, saying, well, we acknowledge your land, but actually, hey, let's have some action about what that means going forward, resources, the power of music, the power of dance, the power of culture, just uniting on those fronts. Am I missing anything, team? And of course, the power of family. I feel like that is that unifying force that can hold together. And I believe that you're one with your tribe. So, hey, that carries on in multiple meanings. So thank you.
Because thank you. I know a lot of the feedback is like, what can we do? Where do we go from here? And as Nicole said in our group, that of course, when you think about supporting, a lot of times money comes up, but giving time and just showing up and being present And I know this is the first day of Heritage Month, and so this is kicking it off, but it's a month. And so there's going to be lots of activities and lots of ways to show up. And so for us too, as we think about this, how can we continue to show up in the spaces that you're holding and be present and continue to learn and do this in community?
Thank you. With our last few minutes, I don't even know what time it is. I need a watch. Thank you. I want to give time if there are any questions, and then also I definitely want to hear from the panel. Kind of the question we always ask at the end is like, what if you had one takeaway that you want us to hear, what would that takeaway be? So we'll kind of give space for both of those things. I'll wait for questions first.
Well, I think from ours was just really the specific question of, are there spiritual or cultural resources compiled for folks in Omaha about the Native and Indigenous community?
So we, as a Native community, we're very traditional as far as like when we talk about our ceremonies and practices and continuing or revitalizing, like giving our spirit names to family members and things like that. They're very tribal specific. So like I said, there's over 576 federally recognized tribes. So it really depends on what they're looking for and the tribal affiliation for them. But like I said, I'm with the Bluebird Cultural Initiative. Our whole mission is revitalizing cultural practices and traditions and ceremonies. When you talked about mental health along with that, we do a lot of work around art therapy. We do work with like substance abuse treatment programs and things that serve Native populations. And so bringing back traditional cultural practices as a coping skill and a way of working through those things. A lot of our youth have continually said that being connected to each other, building that support system within each other is sometimes more beneficial for them than traditional counseling sessions and therapy sessions, that when we continually as a people have to teach and educate other people about how to best work with us, then what is it worth our time to go there and they don't understand or realize what it is that's really going to be helpful for you. So I think that's one of the resource thing is we as Native people kind of are connected to each other for the most part in the community. So we reach out when we need to. A lot of people reach out to us just like trying to get enrolled in tribes. There's social workers that work with a nice program for OPS as well. And so they kind of know who the kind of go-tos are in the community to say, hey, do you know who can help with this? Or just reaching out for those things, I guess. But as kind of outsiders of our community and wanting to get information on that, we do have a training next week. That is, we do a lot of these kind of one-off discussions of 101 Native education that is not even nearly going to encompass everything that we could possibly talk about. And usually, we get about an hour doing cultural humility trainings for organizations and different things like that. But we as a group, so Bluebird and NACPOMA, which is Native American Community Partners of the Omaha Metro area. Yes. Really is all of the organizations serving the Native population specifically, and those that are allies with us and have kind of collaborated and partnered to support the events and things that we're doing, have put together a full day training next Tuesday, 8:30 to 4. Well, it runs 9 to 4, 8:30, the doors open. You can do walk-in registration, but it is on Eventbrite. I think the link will get sent out. I've sent the link for the Eventbrite. It is free to attend. We are taking donations as well. All donations will go into kind of our community pool for events and things that we hold for community members and for youth programming. But It's really about historical trauma and generational trauma transitioning into we as a people are still here. We're not just people of 500 years ago that were colonized, but that we are here breathing, revitalizing the practices and ways we have, and that we're building for our futures. We're not just saying, oh, this is what happened to us, but what are we doing now to rebuild and to build for better futures for our young people? So that's kind of nutshell, best practices. I don't know what the question was at this point.
So, wait, son? Oh, yeah. Seems like everybody liked the song. So, and I know you guys don't understand my language. So I just want to kind of explain what I was singing about first. So in that song, it said, I am standing here, sending my voice out all across the land. And that my relatives, we have one life to live. And so let's stand here with a strong voice across the land. That's all it's saying in that song. But I think that what I want you guys to take away is that we are still here, and that everything you see on the movies, Hollywood, is really not anything near what our people, and like my mother said just right now, that we have many different tribes, and all our tribes have very beautiful ways of how they celebrate and do things traditionally. So that's what I'd say.
Take away? Take all this food away. I'm just kidding. I think a takeaway from cultural revitalization, I think culture is important for all peoples, wherever that they're coming from, but it's also important to be understanding of other cultures and how they operate. I think too many times within politics, there's only one way or two ways of understanding, but how do we get beyond that and to really try to respect people where they're at and where they're coming from? I think when we start talking about equity, it's not about politics, it's more about, how do we help people to elevate themselves to healthier communities, healthier understandings, just healthier for everybody. And so with that, it's just conversation kind of coming to an understanding. And that's kind of, I guess, if there was one takeaway, is just being able to see other perspectives and then to be interested and try to seek out more knowledge.
I agree with Izzy when he said, don't forget that we are here.
I think kind of in partnership with these two here is that for the most part, we just want to be seen and acknowledged as being part of this community. A lot of times the kids ask, like, what do people say when they see us out doing positive things? What do people think about us? Is that we always have to prove that we're Native. We have to prove that we're Native. We have to have a card to say that we're Native. Any other group can say that there's something, and it is what it is. But it's kind of like that tokenized, I guess, idea of things is that understanding that we as a people want to be acknowledged for who we are. We want to be appreciated for the experiences and the things that we have to give to the community and be a part of the community with, but that also understanding that some of the things are just for us. Some things don't have to be shared as a whole with everybody else. It's great for a community to be kind of my own opinion. It's great for a community to be unified and working together and doing all these things, but we are different and it's okay for us to be different. And it's beautiful that we have these different things. So like for us, I know it's important for us to recognize like that we work with the Latino Center of the Midlands, that we're wanting to work with the African-American community. Majority of our kids are not 100% Native. that the only way to really help them identify who they are fully is to identify what are those pieces that make them up and how do we strengthen them in all areas. And so it's important for us to collaborate, but there's also things that you just show up and say, you know what, good job, you guys, you did great. What do you need from me? You need help cleaning up? Okay. Like I'm one in the dirt, picking up, taking trash out to the dumpster with everybody else just the same. So I think this idea of like hierarchy and systems and whatever isn't something that we've had as a community for a long time. Is we all work together to make sure that we're building and supporting each other the best way that we can. So when you bring back traditional values and understanding of what it means to actually be in a community together, then it's really just bringing back that idea of cohesiveness within each other and not really fighting for funding or fighting for whatever, there's enough to go around if we work together. So. I think one more thing, giving acknowledgments of experiences, like I said, I think when you look professionally, education is fantastic. It is great. We have to live in a society together in different levels of it, I guess, professionalism and everything. But understanding that piece of paper doesn't mean all be all, is that this young man here who struggled through school didn't finish high school, but he does presentations and workshops all over. He's articulate. He understands who he is. He understands how to share in a way that everybody can understand. We know that the communities we are part of are not all at a professional level of understanding and speaking, but that when we bring it down to where we all can speak just on the same level, is that we as human beings all know that like this is for the better cause if we do it together. So giving acknowledgement to those experiences and that our young people have many things to share and teach about too. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for giving up your time today. Very much appreciated. And thank you and Pam for being here. Just a quick reminder, Colin, I think we'll have the evaluation link on the slideshow. So please take a minute to do that. That helps us learn what is going well, what we can do better. So very useful information for us. And that the next one will be, thank you. The next one will be December 6th in the evening, and it is going to be highlighting how you can more successfully work with interpreters.